Alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. Dear brothers and sisters, today we want to start, inshallah, chapter 28, Al-Qasas, the whole story. And throughout this chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the story of Moses. The story of Moses is being repeated 19 times in the Quran, from different angles, from different directions, from different perspectives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, throughout the Quran, these stories are not random. They're very selected and very selective. And one of the reasons Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing this story of Moses and the Pharaoh and the Israelites and the Egyptians in Egypt, because that's a recurrent theme. You'll see it happening throughout the history of mankind, since Adam alayhi salam until our time, until the day of judgment, where there's going to be a tyrant. The tyrant is using force, like the Egyptians, to torture a group of people, genocide to a group of people, humiliating a group of people, taking advantage of a group of people for forced labor, slavery. That's been happening throughout the history of mankind. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us in this kind of chapter that a believer, a person who have connection with Allah, connection with the Creator, connection with the Creator of the heaven and earth, should only fear Allah, should only fear this Creator, should only help the causes which this Creator wants, should help peace, should help love, so should help well-being, and should stop abuse, should stop injustice, should stop bloodshed, should stop murder. And in here we see that Moses and the Pharaoh story, it doesn't in throughout this Quran, it doesn't really mean the Pharaoh and Moses by themselves. It can be different characters at the different times, but the same principle is the same. Somebody who is the Pharaoh, in order, and this, you see, this is a recurrent theme with every tyrant, every dictator. He has to make sure that the group of people around him are giving him the support, because he won't be in his position without the support of others. So these people who are supporting him, he will give them the money, he will give them the wealth, he will give them the power. And on the other hand, he will make the prosecuted group into faction, divide them into factions, into groups, and he will actually differentiate between these groups. Some of them, he'll give them some status, some power, so they can abuse, so they can be so they can spying to him and give them the information about the majority. So these majority will never go on to revolt, because everything will be dealt with force. This is, you see, in our recent history, it happens with, right now we have in Syria, for example, the Bashar, he was doing it. You have in our recent history, you have Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh was doing it. You have in our recent history still the Sisi in Egypt. You still have in Saudi Arabia. You still have in all the Arab countries. In Pakistan, military is taking advantage, torturing people, putting people in jail, so on and so forth. And this is the whole idea. The problem is the people are afraid. The people are afraid of others, of these people who are in control or in charge. And that's why these people on the top, they will increase. Initially, they will start to deny them the civil rights. After that, they'll start to deny them the human rights. And after that, they'll start to deny them everything else. They murder them. They genocide them. And that's what, for example, the Pharaoh did to the Israelites. First civil rights, human rights, and then genocide. And this is the same thing happening in Palestine. In Palestine, they started with civil rights. Then human rights. They are under siege. No food, no clean water, nothing can be there. Then, after that, the genocide. And this is what's happening right now. So we have to be aware. And also the people who are supporting the Pharaoh are responsible for their actions. The Pharaoh doesn't do the torture. The Pharaoh doesn't do his action without the support of the class which is helping him. And this class will be held responsible. These class are not getting anything, because a lot of people who committed the torture in Syria, they're probably getting a minimum wage job. They're only getting a job, and then when the revolt happened, the man on the top, Bashar Assad, he leave, he escaped. And the people in the middle, those group of people who were torturing others, they're the one who's going to be hit hard, and they will be taken to jails and prisons. And therefore, they gain what? Nothing at the end. So that's another message to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing in the Quran that don't fear Allah. Have Allah the only one you report to. Have Allah the only one you are afraid of. And don't fear that tyrant. And you see the story of Moses and the Pharaoh. Once a group of people stopped and standed firm in front of oppression of the Pharaoh, everything changed. And this group of people were few. Those were the magicians, the Egyptian magicians. The Egyptian magician, they saw what Moses are coming with. There's no magic. There is a higher power behind Moses. And that higher power can help them, can benefit them. And also the higher power can harm them. So the Pharaoh is actually under and governed by this higher power, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from here they prostrated. They started to believe. They said, we're Muslims. We are submitters. We will surrender to who? To the kings of the heavens and earth. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the Lord of Moses and Harun and Aaron. And they became Muslim. And then the Pharaoh trying to, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to torture you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He said, do whatever you want to do. We will stay Muslims. We will stay believing in the Creator, the Lord of Moses, the Lord of Harun, the Lord of the heavens, the Lord of the earth. And the Pharaoh did what? He want to make sure that everybody can see them tortured. So everybody think. It's a mind game. Everybody think 100 times before he will revolt. So he put them. He crucified them. He cut their hands. He cut their foot. It sounds familiar, yes? It sounds familiar with what's going on in Gaza, with what's going on in Sudan, with what's going on all over in China, with what's going on in Egypt, with what's going on in Pakistan. That is exactly the same theme with what's going on in America, but it's in a different scenario. Again, America, in order for a guy like Donald J. Trump to win the election, he had to work on the racial issues, religious issues. He has to play on the white supremacy issues. All these issues have made the people who will support the racist people coming out in numbers to support him, because that's what he was playing on, and that is what he was support came from. And we have to be very understanding to what's going to happen. This is just a start. Over the past 20 years, a lot of events have happened since September 11th, war in Iraq, the financial crisis, 2008. Then you're going to have on the coronavirus. Then you have the war in Ukraine. Then you have your war in Gaza. Then you have so many different wars throughout the globe. The main thing is the end times are here. We're living in the end. And all these, the succession of all of these events just tell us one thing. We have to go back. We have to go back and believe in the true, pure, clear Islam, clear, pure Quran. Practice the teachings of Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.